Greetings and welcome to this episode of Stand for Ag with Missouri Farmers Care. From the intersection of production to being a consumer and every issue in between, we appreciate you joining us for this deep dive into Missouri agriculture. We are thrilled to have today's guest. Not only is she an award-winning professional speaker, she's a family business consultant, and she's a real Farmer Brown from Eastern Iowa. So joining us from our neighbor to the north, I first saw Jolene in action at MFA Incorporated's annual meeting and knew from the way she lit up the crowd to getting people thinking that she was someone that we definitely wanted to have a conversation with as we started the new year and began to look at the many ways that we leave a legacy on the farm. And so Jolene knows family business. She's worked around kitchen tables and dinner tables for over 30 years across North America to help families fix, transition, and protect their family business. Jolene, we are thrilled that you've joined us.
Well, I'm just tickled to be here, and I'm going to be talking about the top 10 mistakes we make that break up the farm and family business. And you know, there's no better teachers than those who have done it and the lessons that we've learned from it. So what I've learned, Ashley, is those of us in agriculture are superior at production. We have all kinds of resources to help us with the weeds, the seeds, the breeds, the feeds, the money, machinery, even the marketing, but it's the people that do all the production. So if you want to build a business worthy of transitioning, have goodwill within family members, and then do the work for a legacy, that means we've got to be working with the people. And boy, have I learned a lot in my 30 years.
It has certainly been insightful just watching your experience play out, Jolene, when I have followed you on social media to see the stories that you get to see, windows into our family businesses. So tell us a little bit how you've seen these top 10 mistakes play out in farm families.
Well, there's four things that we have to understand in the foundation. And the first is that silence is the greatest killer of family, a farm, and the family business. And yet nobody wants to talk about this. And we get so emotional and it's so confusing. And so let's go plant. Let's go work with the calves. Let's go do things in production. And all of a sudden something happens and the people are not ready for the transition. So silence is the great destroyer, and communication is the bloodstream of our business. And you know, I'm just like those of you who are watching this, and that is, the more I have to communicate with family members, the more I like cows, because if I don't like that old biddy, I'm gonna send her to market. Can't do that with mom or dad or sisters or brothers or cousins. Yet communication is the bloodstream of our business. In order to not waste time, to do it positively and productively, I think there are some insights and tools that can be shared to make sure that we move from silence into communication. So that's the first foundation piece. The second thing, when I work with a family business, I have to let them understand that a conversation is not a contract. Oh, hey, did you guys know that people in family business lie? Now, they may not mean to, but they say the same thing over and over again and don't do the work to assure it will happen. They say things like, work hard, someday this will all be yours, or yeah, I'm going to retire. And then there is that dreaded, oh, you don't have to worry about your brothers and sisters. They've got their jobs. They're not interested in the business. Now, that's true until you're dead. So what I want you to clearly understand, that if things are not in writing, things do not exist. And one of the saddest phone calls I had was from the third generation, a man on the farm. He was in his 40s. And this is what he said to me: Jolene, I always thought my father's word was good, but I just found out it wasn't. So if you want this all to be yours, or if you want the legacy to continue, then there's work that must be done. And I have found with family, more, not less, has to be in writing. So that's the second foundation piece. The third is that when you're in a family business, you must make an intentional decision. And here's what you've got to decide. Do you want to operate as a family first business or a business first family? Now, let me explain the difference. About 95% or more of every family that calls me or emails or after the speeches, they come up, they're operating as a family first. Let's not rock the boat. We don't want to get dead bad. Gosh, I think there's a will. Oh, we just all love each other. We'll be just fine. And what I find is you are operating your business and your future on a habit, assumption, a wish, or a hope. And I've learned that hope's not a good business strategy. Instead, I do want you to know, if you want to operate as a family first business, that's okay with me as long as the business can be a hobby. But don't you be counting on it for productivity, profitability, peace of mind, and to sit together happily at a holiday table. Instead, what I have found with this successful businesses, and by the way, I've been at over 400 kitchen tables. I've learned what works and what doesn't. And what I find is that they choose intentionally to operate as a business first family. Now, this does not demean the family. This does not say, hey, this business is more important than you, the family. But what it says is we love and honor you, this family, so very much. We had better get the business right. And when they operate as a business first family, we are able to deal with emotion and conflict and goals and directions and in-laws and all kinds of things that have been roadblocks when we operated as a family first. So you have to make an intentional decision, family first or business first. As a business first, you honor that family by doing the business right. And then the fourth thing, which is the foundation for how I work, and that is I bring what I consider to be the four most important tools that you need in a family business. And here's what they are. When I come to you, I'm going to bring a mirror. I'm going to bring a box of tissues. I'm going to bring a roll of duct tape, and I'll bring a 2x4 board. And you know what? We're probably going to use them all. Here's why. The mirror is because most of you invite me to your family, so I will fix somebody else. You know, if dad would just give up control, if mom would just say what's on her mind, if those kids just had a work ethic, well, if he hadn't married her, we'd be okay. You know, fix them and we're going to be fine. Hey, we got to start with the people of the business and the people at the table. We got to look into the mirror, and individually, we must interact and have communication about the process and the result. The other reason I bring the mirror is that it takes us to today. Now, as I work with you, I probably have listened to hours about the history of how you got to today. You know, what grandpa said in his will, or what a cousin did to you, or what a daughter-in-law is thinking. You always want to go back to that. And I've listened to that. But when I am with you, I don't come for show. And that means we start with where we are at today to get to where it is you want to be. That's the mirror. The box of tissues is, oh, Ashley, there's always emotion. There's tears and anger and fear and resentment and worry. And they have taught me that when emotion and logic collide, emotion always wins. So we have to deal with the emotion to get to the logic on the other side. And I was recently at a kitchen table. Of course, mom is getting all teary. We're getting all emotional. And I just handed her a tissue. And I said, you just go ahead and cry it out. And when you're done, we're going to continue to talk about it. So go ahead and cry. Well, she stopped in a hurry and we got back to work. Yep. We have to deal with the emotion. The duct tape. Now, most people think I need it, so I put it over their mouth and they'll listen to each other. Well, that would be helpful. But why I really bring it is sometimes I have to tape them to their chairs. You go over the legs, underneath the seat of the chair, and around, because you just know there's somebody at that table who goes, by golly, this is how it's going to be. And I'm done talking about it. And he wants to get up, or she wants to get up and walk away. And then there's others who just get so torn up inside. They say something like, oh, this is hard. I'll go get us some coffee and cookies and we'll all be fine. Nope. If I'm there, you've got to stay present. You've invited me for a specific purpose. Let's get the work done. Which brings me to the 2x4, because sometimes there is no other way. And let me give you two examples of the 2x4. I'm in Canada working with a wonderful family business. The father was a real challenge, let me tell you. And finally, after 2 days of being with him and all the pre-work before I showed up, he said, you know more about our business than we do. And I said, well, whose fault is that? Slam the 2x4. Let's get going. You've got some work to do. And the other time I used a 2x4, mom and dad had worked really hard to build a solid business. She ran a travel agency and he served on all kinds of agricultural boards. So he was gone quite a bit. And therefore they had transitioned by contract the farm to the next generation. And they are getting payments for this rent for this, for this purchase, for this transition. That's what they're going to live on. The kids aren't paying them. Mom and dad are all upset. And I finally said to mom and dad, was this a legal contract? And they said, yes. I said, well, then you have to take them to court. Oh, but there are kids. Well, then it's a gift. Oh, no, we need the money. Well, you got to take them to court. And then I turned to the kids and I said, why aren't you paying the terms of this contract that you signed? And here's what they said. Well, we're going to get it all anyway. Why should we have to pay for it? That's time for the 2x4. So those are the 4 foundation pieces that we have to get into. And then we talk about the mistakes that we make that keep us from doing that work.
Yes, I can imagine why a strong facilitator in these very emotional conversations is exceptionally important, and can't imagine how many stories that you could tell us of walking through, threading the needle through those fine family issues, business issues that you're exactly right, all overlay. Well, we all share that same goal of ensuring success of the next generation, right? Organizations like Missouri Farmers Care exist so that we can lay the groundwork, not only from a regulatory and a policy and an outreach and an education avenue, but so that there's opportunities for that next generation. But if we fail at the business fundamentals, you're exactly right. Lifetimes and generations can go by the wayside just due to lack of planning. So we really appreciate those tips. And I know that you've got a lot more that you walk through and help families through as you sit down at these kitchen tables.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. I had a call last week and I finally said to the person, are you done being stupid? So you see, I do not facilitate. I don't even mediate. There's times I dictate. I'm not a hand holder. I will hold you to account to do the work that you know needs to be done to reach your goals, to build this business worthy of transitioning. And then we need to make it legal. We need to make sure it's financially solid. So you better have a strong team of advisors, which is an attorney, an accountant, a financial planner is key. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then you better have a family business coach, somebody who helps you with the mosquito bites so we don't have volcanic eruptions, to make sure that you stay positive and productive. So when we go to the 10 mistakes that farm families make that break up their business, the first one is we assume just because we're related to each other that we can and should be working together. And hey, that's not true. You know, being part of a family business is not a birthright, and neither is a family business a place to rehabilitate a family member. If there's someone in your family who is angry or addicted or arrogant or lazy, don't hire them. Nobody else would. Why do you give them a paycheck to keep them working that way? So this is my 18th year of doing a young leader program in our industry for one certain aspect. And by now, of course, the people who went through those first classes, they're now leading our associations, our corporations, and our cooperatives. And you know what? They invite me back to be a speaker, to be a keynote speaker for a banquet, or to do training for them on the human side of agriculture. So I'm sitting with somebody from class number 3. He is the president of this association, and we are talking at the table before my keynote that night. And he said, well, Jolene, we finally did it. We bit the bullet. He said, we brought our son into the business. I said, oh, gosh, Dad, that's great. How's that working for you? Not so good. Well, what's going on? Well, Jolene, he just doesn't have the work ethic that we need. And Mom elbows him. She says, you tell her like it is. He's just plain lazy. And so I said to Dad, how long's he been working for you? Well, a little over a year. Have you been paying him? Mom says, big bucks. I'm the bookkeeper. Not only does he get a big salary, he has more fringe benefits than we do. And then I asked Dad an important question. I said, so Dad, why exactly did you hire him? Dad's exact words were, well, Jolene, he couldn't keep a job anyplace else.
Oh, what a painful lesson that family's living out, right?
Lazy here, lazy there. So don't assume that just because you're related to somebody, you can be working together, and do not rehabilitate. By the way, never hire a family member you're not willing to fire, okay? Because I do not want moms and dads hiring sons and daughters. I want leader managers hiring really good and worthy employees. And I have all kinds of prerequisites to make sure we get that done. So the second thing I'll highlight real quickly, this is a big mistake. We forget how important money is. We assume that all people who want to come into the business, we can financially afford to bring them in. But you know, I've worked for a lot of rural banks. I've also worked a lot for Farm Credit. And here's what I hear. They build a business. They've got the 5 key ratios. They're looking solid. And somebody graduates, and instead of working for somebody else for a while, which is one of my prerequisites, they bring them right into the business, and they started with a big salary, and they think it's always going to be that way. And the person they're married to thinks it's always going to be that way. And so now we've got 2 in the family business. Oh, you graduated. You want to come back too? Well, come on in. And pretty soon there's not enough money for anybody. So here's where we've got to be coached. We must understand that money truly matters. You have to answer the question, how much money do you need for your family living? This probably will take a financial planner. It's probably going to take you pushing some pencils. What does it cost for you and your spouse and your kids to live? The second thing, how much of that has to come from the farm? Maybe you have off-farm income, maybe you have Social Security, maybe you have other investments, but how much of what you need has to come from the farm? And that will tell you whether or not you can have more family units in the business, or are they going to add value, increase income, cut expenses? Because here's what I know, it is not the senior generation's job to make a business big enough that if anybody wants to come back, they can come back. It is those wanting employment in a business that come with the value that they're going to bring, what it is that they can do to increase, as I said, the value, cut expenses, that we're going to have an opportunity to this. We're going to relieve your stress. In our case, you're going to take care of technology, so I don't have to. You see, but here's the kicker. The value that you have to bring has to equal your cost, because you pay people out of cash flow, not net worth. Did you get that?
An important differentiation there.
Yeah. And so money matters. And I'll just do one more before we wrap up. And that is, when I talked about a conversation is not a contract and the 3 lies that people bring, when I say you better have some things in writing, and I'm not just talking about your marketing goal, but I'm talking about a business plan that includes risk protection, that includes the list of your advisors, that includes so many parts. And with that business plan, you better have other things specifically in writing that deal with the human side, so you can honor your family. So when I am with you, the templates that I teach, first of all, you better have a business overview in the form of an outline. And on one page, we're going to describe everything that you do 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. That is a business overview. And from that, I will show you how to make a managing people chart. This is where we have the people involved in the business on a spreadsheet like Excel. And then everything on that outline becomes the long vertical column. Then you assign letters. Well, who's responsible for this? The buck stops with you. You got to make sure the work gets done. I didn't say you had to work alone, but it's your job to make sure it gets done. You have to report to the owners about this. You have to understand the money involved in this. You have to be the one who makes sure we have goals in this area. Who's responsible for this part of the farming business? And then who does the work? Who do you have to consult with before you do it? And it might be your lender. It might be the landowners. And who do you have to keep informed? Well, that be your in-laws or your spouses or other family members or key employees. Well, as we work through this managing people chart, it does several things. First of all, it will set your salary based on the value that you bring. Based on the R's, I'm responsible, and the W's, the work I do, we set your salary. It's also your job description, not in a big paragraph form, but really I can see what I need to do. But here's the key. It tells me whether or not a transition is happening, because we will do this. I'll get the outline done very quickly, and we'll revise it for them. And then I say, everybody take a copy and just fill in the R's. And then Dad turns his in first. Well, John does this, and Judy does this, and Pat does that, and Saul does, he has the R's all across the chart. But I get back everybody else's, and you know what it says? Dad, R, 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 R. And I said, hey, Dad, the #1 job of a leader is to replace him or herself. And it is your job every year to be transitioning these R's so you keep the C, that consult with why the wise master is still here. And I can tell whether or not a business is truly transitioning. So there's many other uses, but we have to also have a code of conduct. What I find is different generations think and work differently, but what do you as a business first family believe to be good and right and fair? I give them a template and they work from that. We need a way to deal with conflict at the mosquito bite level. So it will not be ignored. It'll be addressed at the business itself and not taken home to the in-laws or to the coffee shop or the neighbors. We have to have a way to deal with conflict positively. And when we do that, good things can happen. Oh, I got stories on that one. But there's about 8 or 9 other tools that I find a business first family really has in place. And when you operate as a business, that's how you honor the family.
So we have talked about a lot in a really short amount of time. Now tell me, this could be something families could really quickly get overwhelmed. Are all these steps necessary at once, or is there room to develop this? Tell me a little bit about that process.
Okay, when you start, we have to know the intent of the senior generation and or the asset owners. You've got to find out, and I'm real clear on this. Do you really want this business to continue? And all I want is a yes or a no. Is that they're fire in their belly that you want this to continue? Not, oh, it's going to be hard. We don't know what to do or where do we start? Is this your intent? Yes or no? Second, well, when are you going to transition it? Not just the labor and the management, but when are you going to transition leadership and ownership? Is it going to be during your lifetime, keeping that consulting role while the wise master is still there? Because we need you. We're not going to kick you off the farm or ranch. We need you. Or you're going to transition it at the reading of the will. Surprise. I just want to know when you're going to transition it. You've got to answer that. And the third question you have to answer before I work with you is, to whom are you going to transition? And I want to know if you have operations separate from land. I want to know if you're going to transition operations to those who know how to operate a business, or if you're going to leave it to everybody, undivided interest, we're all owners and we'll all get along. Well, I've got to know your intent. And once we have those, then actually we don't do this all at once. For example, the code of conduct is a 20-minute meeting. It's the only item on the agenda. What does this business to be good and right and fair? You cross out what you disagree with, you write in what you would rather have. We work till we get 100% consensus, and then every single person must in their own handwriting sign it. Then the leader must model and hold herself or himself to account. In other words, they better be modeling this and give people permission to catch them when they don't. Because we're all learning. We're not going to be miracle workers overnight, but we're going to work hard to become a business first family. So each of the tools is taught separately. Each of the tools does not overwhelm you, but it lets you get started. And then for heaven's sakes, make sure you get a good attorney, an accountant, and a financial planner. I have learned that if the senior generation is not financially secure, they will never transition the power of the business. Because, oh, you want to buy more land? Well, what about me? You want to buy more equipment, but what about me? And then they hang on and they never transition. You see, we've got to make sure that senior generation is financially secure so we can let the next generations take the risk on what they can afford to grow or lose, but you are still okay. So there's many pieces to do this, but my whole intent when I work with a farm family is that we increase your productivity, and we will. With that increases your profitability. It'll give everybody a lot more peace of mind, and only then can you sit together happily at a holiday table.
I am sure that those families that you work with, when you walk away and have had the hard conversations, have a lot to celebrate. And one of your points that you make is we have so much to celebrate in agriculture. Please make sure to take the time to do so.
You know, that's one of the mistakes we make is we forget to celebrate. We're like the hamsters on the wheel. We go round and round and round. We're working hard. We get burnt out, worn out, stressed out. And then we say to the next generation, hey, hop on the wheel so you can get burnt out, worn out, stressed out. What would happen if we finally paused to applaud all that we have done? The building of a legacy does not happen overnight. It comes with a lot of blood and sweat and tears and years. We must honor that, taking the best of those lessons as we build and grow for the future. And pausing to celebrate might be something as simple as thanking people. It might be the celebration after harvest. And in my book, sometimes it takes more than the 2x4. I close the book with this example. Harvest is always an intense time on the Brown farm. Everybody has things they have to do. You're up early, you're late, and I'm trying to get meals ready. I'm out in the field, I'm helping. And we have two little girls. And they're at the kitchen table. And we have said, Mom and Dad are going to be real busy right now. And here's what we're going to do. And here's what we need for you to do. But when we're done, little girls, how do you want to celebrate? And those two little schemers were 3 and 4.5. And they said, we'll tell you tomorrow at the kitchen table. So the next morning they came down. They're all excited. Mommy, Daddy, when you're done harvesting, here's how we want to celebrate. We want to put on our fancy clothes and dance in the kitchen. What? They had been flower girls at a wedding. They had the cutest dresses, hadn't had them on since the wedding. And my husband and I were host and hostess, and we looked pretty good too. And at that reception, did the 4 of us dance. So just like when a community has a fundraiser, they draw a thermometer and they fill it in when they raise $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 till the thermometer gets to the top. Well, on our refrigerator, we had an acre thermometer. And every morning, Daddy, how many acres did you combine? And they fill it in. Mama, how many acres are done? They fill it in, and they're filling it. And now the shoes are out and they're filling it in. And now the dresses are out and we're finally done. And they are so excited. And then my husband, Keith, said, oh man, now the work really starts. I got to get that oil drained. I don't think I got the sprayer winterized. I better move some soils before the ground freezes. And I looked at our 2 little girls and there were tears going down their faces. And I said to my husband, Keith, are you sure you don't just have 1 hour to put on your fancy clothes and dance in the kitchen? And we danced. I wish all of us, the hardworking, good people of agriculture, don't forget to stop and to celebrate and to dance.
Absolutely. That shared sense of accomplishment that brings everybody together. That is a wonderful memory. That's a wonderful memory. Well, you guys, we have just barely hit the surface of what Jolene offers in family business conversations and in helping farm families across the nation and across North America. So she does not hide under a rock. She can be found lots of places, from RFD to YouTube to Successful Farming, and most easily and most directly at jolenebrown.com. She has some wonderful, I spent the last week reading her book. Sometimes you need more than a 2x4. There's a lot of resources out there that can serve as helps to you as well. So please don't hesitate to look her up. And again, Jolene, thank you for joining us today.
And thank you to Missouri Farmers Care. You are on a worthy mission, and you also want to take care of the people who are going to make that mission happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and we seek to do that. So in joining you at our next episode, we will have Connie Hayden with a law firm in Columbia that focuses on agricultural law, business planning. And so some of those partners that come and bring the tools to the conversation that Jolene has been talking about today. Connie and I will be visiting about those next time. So for this edition of Stand for Ag podcast with Missouri Farmers Care, thank you. And until we see you again, our best to you.